Hello, I'm Frost and welcome to this video where I'm going to be covering Split Vendetta, the new DLC for X4 Foundations, and what you can expect. Right, so before we get underway, the first thing I want to say is I'm going to be making sure that I do not give you any spoilers. And if there's anything that I consider that might be a spoiler, I will give you a spoiler alert so that you can close your eyes until I say it's good to go. I will also not be giving any details with regards to the campaign so that it all remains a complete surprise. All I'm going to talk about is the kind of things that you can expect to see, but I will not be showing anything from the campaigns per se. Now, moving on, the first thing we need to cover is that with Split Vendetta, we also had a new update. So that was update 3.0. We went originally on 2.5. And the big change that happened with this 3.0 update was a performance update. Now, what you're watching at the moment is footage from a game I was playing prior to 3.0, and it had become unplayable. I'd reached a point which was very much endgame. I had these big bases, I had loads of ships, loads of stations trading, and the game just couldn't cope because it keeps a persistent state throughout the whole universe, and the economy was great, not just for me, but for the Argons and the Talades. There was so much trade and so many ships around that the game just could not function. And I was getting, at best, whilst traveling through space, about 10 to 11 frames per second. And I was getting like 1 to 2 frames per second on a map. And just trying to drag the map in any direction was just excruciating. There's just this massive delay. So there's been a big improvement there. Like I said, with version 3.0, a couple of weeks later, they released 3.1, which added even more performance. And as you can see now, even flying through my Borg cube that is a disaster of a base, you can still see that I can fly through it, and I'm getting a decent frame rate so that I can actually enjoy the game. So that's great news. So that means that when I play with the new missions that I've started, I know that I can get to end game and it's not just going to grind to a halt due to performance issues. And these performance issues are not computer related. I'm running a 16-core AMD Ryzen 9 with a 5700 XT, and whilst I'm running on in 4K, I can get 60 frames per second no problem when we don't have all these transactions going on. So that's really good stuff. We will still get the usual weird stuff, that you will get caught in rocks. That still happens. It's X4 Foundations. You travel through a gate at travel speed straight into a rock and you get trapped in it. You occasionally get a black cryptic box when you're trying to trade. But that's all part of the charm of X4 Foundation. But moving on from that, what we have some nice changes to the map, which I don't recall seeing in 2.5. I haven't looked at the patch notes. I literally just started a new game, started playing, and just took it as a new user. But I don't recall ever seeing this color coding, which is absolutely brilliant. So you can see that now, obviously we're green as usual, but now the Paranids are purples, so there's a light purple and a dark purple depending on whether the Holy Order or the God Realm. The Taladi also have like a dark green for the Ministry of Finance. They have a light green for the other Taladi faction. Argon is now a dark blue, and Antigon is light blue, and so on and so forth. And so this has really helped, and it also reflects on the ships. So if you actually zoom in on the ships, you can now see, trust me to find an area that doesn't have pink ships. Let's find some pink ships. So I'll be very careful with my map so that I don't give anything away. So there we go. If we zoom in, and there we go, we can see a few ships. There we go. We've got some pink ships flying around there, which represent the Holy Order. So all good stuff on that point of view. The other thing that I don't recall seeing is that now when you select a ship, if I pick a ship in Grand Exchange, like one of my traders, we now get a crosshair. So if the ship is off your map, it seems much easier to track down. I don't ever recall seeing this crosshair. So that is a nice little quality of life feature, if that is definitely a new thing. Now, one of the things that I do know for certain is has improved greatly is Navidium. Now, if you remember, if you played 2.5, you will know that Navidium used to run out after a certain amount of time, and you couldn't trade it with anybody. Now there's a constant flow of Navidium, and on top of that, it is now much more prevalent. So it's in smaller quantities, but in more places, and every single trading station. So, for example, the Taladi trading stations. There's one in. Actually, let me turn on my trade, and then I can see them properly. There we go. Let's turn all these on. I just did it so I had a clear map. We need to zoom out a little bit. There we go. So, for example, the Taladi trading station down in Hawaii's Twin, the one in Profits, the one in Anonymous Zura, and so forth and so on. So all of these trading stations, the ones in Grand Exchange as well, all now trade in Iridium. And I would recommend, if you're starting out, let me close these off again. Actually, yeah, and go to, here we go, to Anonymous Zura. So this is really a good place to, especially if you're with a split, then I recommend going to Anonymous Zura and trading there, as you have a couple of stations nearby. For example, this Taladi trading station, Anonymous Zura 4, as well as one in Hawaii's Twin. And then there's one further up as well, just off near Profit Center Alpha. Obviously, if you're playing the Argon and stuff like that, then Second Contact Flashpoint by this gate right here, leading to Black Hole Sun, also has loads and loads of Iridium. So my game is auto-saving now, so you know that this is, I'm actually moving the mouse as I'm talking. So on the whole, loads of big changes there that are really, really good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk about the actual game itself. And what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the Boron, or Boso Tar is her name. And the missions have been cleaned up. They've definitely been improved, a great deal. But what's actually happened is that now the game has moved on from that in terms of before when you got to the point where you got Boso in her base, a new base in Grand Exchange, you kind of just had to train up all the research and it just took time. And so now it requires missions to be completed and also some resources to be acquired. So if we just look at this research map, now I've completed it because I've gone quite a long way into the game, so I could show you the ships and stuff from the split a little bit later. But the basic chassis mods down in the bottom left hand corner here, the basic chassis mods, the basic shield mods and the basic weapon mods have little campaigns you have to do, little quests, and those are basically go see a guy, fetch a thing, bring it back. So they're pretty straightforward. The basic engine mods is actually slightly different, and this one's actually harder to do because it's kind of a race course that you have to complete, and it took me a little while to figure out that I needed the right ship to do it. And I can give you a tip right now that the ship that you need to be in is the Pegasus Vanguard. So let me just bring that up. I'm in the Pegasus Vanguard right now, and if we actually look at the fittings, so there we go, Pegasus Vanguard. You can get it from a Paranid station. You will need the Combat Mark IIIs. You will then also, for the engines, you will then also need the All-Round Mark IIIs. This will make a big difference. Trust me, this test is not that straightforward. So you really do need this fast ship so that you not only get the fast acceleration and the good boost, but you get the travel speed as well. And so you need those two things. And then if you can as well, if I just bring it up on my map here, most of my Pegasus Vanguard, if you've already done the chassis stuff for the research, then if we go into information and we're going to loadout, if you can try and get yourself the Polisher mod to reduce your ship drag, that will help as well. And then you should be able to complete that mission. Now, one of the things as well is to get off to a really good start is rather than just hitting travel mode, doing a shift 1 and going straight to travel mode, hit boost, get yourself up to speed, and then jump into travel mode, and that will give you a much better start off the line. So there you go. So a couple of tips there to get you going. Now, going back to this research, the other items, everything from teleportation, teleportation, me and my long words, honestly, teleportation, as well as the hacking modules and all the advanced and exceptional mods, all require you to obtain components to build them. So be aware that before you can do all of these, you will have to build a dock on your Grand Exchange station and build at least a couple of small containers in order for the and then hopefully, if you can as well, get yourself a medium transporter and assign it to the station, and then they can go off and start getting all the components that are needed for you to be able to complete these research tasks. So there you go. So that kind of covers the research side. And then from there as well, one of the other things I wanted to mention is, if I get up just for a sec and stand back, is one of the things I'm not sure was in 2.5. Hang on, I'm standing in the way of my Paranid here. He's a big chap and I'm getting in his way. Was that you can now give these guys piloting seminars. So you can see there's my piloting seminar, and these you can pick up from the trading station, from the trading posts. And what it means is that you can now get all your pilots up to 2 stars almost immediately. So every time you go to a trading station, you pick up basic piloting and 1-star piloting. They're available in all the traders' corners. Pick those up, and you can train up your pilots so they're kind of at least half effective. Then after that, you have to then do quests and things to be able to get them up to 3-4 stars, etc. And also they need to gain their experience. So it's worth mentioning for the piloting seminars. Then moving on, we're actually going to go into now the campaigns. Now the campaigns are all based around this chap called Dull Buster. And the way that I triggered the campaigns was I went to, let me bring up the map. I went to Hatikva's Choice up here. So once again, I'm being very careful not to open up the map fully. Whoop. There we go. I went a little bit too far. So let me bring up the map. Hang on. There we go. Hatikva's Choice. And I went to the Hatikva station right here. There we go. It's called the Hat Hagen Trading Station. And when you get there, you will hopefully meet a character that will give you a campaign mission to help out the Tikva. Then this mission will introduce you to Dull Buster, and then Dull Buster will then be your companion for not only this mission, but then the 2 missions that come after it. And these 2 missions the first one involves the Split, and it involves the 2 factions of the Split called the Zayat Patriarch and the Free Families. And then also the other campaign is to do with the Paranid and covers a civil war between the Paranid with the Holy Order and the God Realm. And both of these are pretty much in-depth. They cover a lot of stuff, and you get to do a lot of different things, both in your ship and in your spacesuit. And they involve simple things like going to fetch stuff, they involve combat, they involve rescue missions, they involve sabotage, they involve you flying around in your spacesuit, even in a maze. So lots and lots of different kind of activities to do, and a good storyline along with it. And in fact, one of the things that I really like about this Split Vendetta is they really kind of brought out the lore of X4, which was kind of really missing. So you're kind of really getting to know the factions and interact with them a lot more. Now, just so you know as well, the Split campaign can be pretty much done in a small ship. So you can just use a fighter and do pretty much every single stage of the campaign right up to the very end. Whilst the Paranid one, I highly recommend that you use a frigate for that. So a medium-sized combat ship or a corvette, as otherwise you will struggle. When you get to the end game of these, there are some very, very high requirements to complete them. And you will require to build bases and acquire lots of funds in order to complete them. But that is all that I'm going to say about that. Now we're going to come on to the Split themselves. Now, as I said, there are two factions in the Split. There is the Zayat Patriarchy and the Free Families, and they're in conflict with each other. Now, what we're going to do is, if you don't want spoilers, I'm going to say right now, close your eyes and just listen to me. So what we have is they are in the north. So the light orange on the right here, the Free Families, and you can see these are the areas. And on top of that, we also have some xenon areas hanging off the side of those, some xenon systems. Also, you see right at the top here, there is this one system that you can't actually get to until the accelerator is unlocked during the Split campaign. So just be aware, if you can't find that and you're wondering why this accelerator isn't unlocked, that is why you have to actually do the split campaign with Dialbuster to unlock that. Then over on this side, you can see the Zayat Patriarchy, and so there's some systems here, and then further off to the side you can see that there's some more, once again with some Xenon. One of the things you'll also see is there are some new systems, neutral system, there's some new Paranid systems right here. Over on this side you will see that there's 2 new Argon systems as well as these 2 Taladi systems right there. And then I don't ever recall seeing this in 3. As you can see off the void there is an extra system here called Frontier Edge, which I don't recall ever seeing even on maps that I looked at after I'd kind of explored. So that seems to be new. Now for those of you that are listening, what you need to know is this, that access point into the split are in Anonymous Zura 7, they are in Profit Center Alpha, they are also through Tharka's Cascade 15 and through Heretic's End, and then finally, yeah, that's all of them. And so basically they're in the north. All right, so go to the north and try and remember those. Profit Center Alpha is probably the easiest one to find. Go to the north of Profit Center Alpha, you'll find a gate, you're into the split territories within a jump. So there you go. So let me zoom back out and you can open your eyes again. So there we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the split spaceships, because they are obviously the highlight of the whole Vendetta expansion. And here we have the ASP. Now the first thing that you will note when you see them is everything is very angular and everything is very triangular. This ship, the fighter, it's a small fighter, is the ship that you will get if you start the Patriarch scenario when you first start X4 Foundations. Now, as well as being very triangular, they have their own sets of weapons. Obviously these weapons still have all the same damage types, so you have a flak weapon, a pulse weapon, a beam weapon, etc. You have the same sort of complement of turrets. Obviously they're split ones with their slightly different stats. They also have something called a boson lance, and the boson lance seems to be a really high damage weapon that shoots very slowly, almost like a plasma cannon, and it seems to be very much for use with capital ships. I personally tried it, didn't like it, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. But the feeling that I get looking at these ships, and if I start moving across from the ASP, we move over to the Chimera, which is one of the heavy fighters, which I think is the Patriarchy one, and then we move across to the Balor, there we go, which is the one from the Free Families. Is that to me, I imagine them as Lamborghinis in space. They really have that kind of Lamborghini look to them, very angular, lots of sharp edges and lots of different shapes to them. So really, really interesting. Fun to fly as well. And the thing to be aware of as well is that everything has a reptilian name. So we've got, for example, like I said, we've got the Asp back here, which is obviously a snake. We've got the Chimera, which is a mythical creature, and then we've got the Balur, which is also a mythical creature, or stroke dinosaur type creature. We then at the back here, I don't know if you can see them, I'm just not going to fly over to them, but you have the Wyvern, which is the large transporter, and then all the way down there in the little corner is the Boa. And they're basically, once again, the same kind of angular shapes. But the ships I really want to show you are the Destroyer and then the Carrier. So if I move across a little bit, and then if I move up, and let's see if I parked my ships in the right place. Oh no, before we get onto the Destroyer, of course, we have the medium-sized class, and this is the frigate. So here's the frigate, so let's move up a little bit. And this is the Cobra. And the way that I would describe it is it's similar to the Gorgon Vanguard. It's kind of your go-to ship. You will have this ship from kind of just after the beginning of the game, so it'll be your first medium ship, and you'll have it all the way through to end game, because once you mod it, it becomes super, super powerful. Once again, you know, very, very angular, great ship to look at, and as you can see, everything's tucked away down the front there. And then I've got to be careful that I get my angles right because of the sun and the pulsar that we've got there. But yeah, they just look absolutely fantastic. I love the shape of them. Then what we're going to do is we're going to zoom up and we come on to our destroyer. Now the destroyer, let me come up a little bit more so I don't want to give away the other ship too early. There we go. The destroyer reminds me very much, if you play EVE Online, it reminds me of the Hurricane. You know, it's a big pointy thing, you know, like a proper ship with some big guns on it. And yeah, it just looks absolutely epic. So very, very different from the ships that we've had so far in X4 Foundations. And very pleasing to the eye, I have to say. Now, to me, the pièce de résistance, the highlight of the split, is the carrier. The carrier is absolutely epic. And we're going to come up to the carrier now. And I'm just going to bring it into view. Here it is. Let me slide across a bit more. So that's the back of the carrier. You can see it's just got one big, massive engine, which is a bit of a weakness. But it is this big, long, super pointy thing with a mouth. And you're thinking, okay, well, what is this mouth about? Well, this is the thing that's really nice about it. So if I sort of fly up here, and we go up towards the back of the ship. There we go. Let me just come over nice and slowly. We've got the medium docking bay, but then you can see there's this kind of entrance. Now it's all very bright because obviously I'm facing into the sun. But if we fly in here, you can see that there's all of these small docking bays for your fighters. And the whole idea is that when you launch the fighters, they will come launching out of here. So they come flying out of here, straight out of the mouth of the carrier, which just looks absolutely epic. So there you go. So there it is. So in fact, let me just caps lock that for a second, just stop my ship. And if we just go into the map and quickly go to my Raptor, there we go. Let's undock some ships. So take those and let's just fly to here. There we go. And so you're going to see them all undocking and coming out of this gaping maw of the Raptor. So it looks absolutely incredible. And one of the things that I do love with X4 Foundations, and I'll come back to this in a minute, is the scale. So here you go, here they come all flying out. So, you know, can you imagine once you've got this Raptor full, you know, this full complement of 50 fighters, and you undock them all, that's just going to look absolutely epic of all these ships kind of flying out from this carrier. So there you go, that is very much the highlight. Okay, off they go. And there you go, so there's the Raptor. So there's a couple of other ships. Obviously there's the courier ship called the Tuatura. For some reason there is a scout ship called the Jaguar. I don't know why they have one ship that's named after a feline, after you've got all these ships that have been named after reptiles. So not quite sure what's going on there, but there you go. So now what that's going to do is just bring us on to the structures. So the first thing that you will notice with these structures, they look very, very different from anything that we've had from the Argon, the Talaudi and the Paranid. And the reason why is down to the connectors. And if we bring up the build, here we go. So I've got a defense platform here. You will see if these connectors, that the cross connector right here is triangular. So there's actually 3 connection points on the connector rather than 4. And as a consequence, it's creating these kind of very angular looking stations. And also the administrative center, as you can see, is like triangular. The defense platforms, the same thing. There's 3 connectors. And so it creates a very, very different look to the structures. On top of that, one of the things that's a little bit bizarre is if we go to the storage models, there we go. The thing to be aware of is the small containers, as you can see, they only have a connector on the bottom, on the top. So that means that you can only fix them onto the bottom of the structure. Now the medium containers are fine, they've got one on the bottom, one at the top. But generally what it will mean is that you are building your container storage downwards, and then you will build all your other modules upwards. Hence why I've started this in the middle of my base rather than on the bottom that you would normally do with the Argon and Taladi, where you would build it at the bottom here and then just build everything upwards. So something to bear in mind with the Split. Also, their habitation modules are called parlors for some reason, and the parlors obviously are just pointy up things. There we go. So they just head straight up. Now, believe it or not, I normally struggle to make things look really neat, and I've actually managed to do rather well with with this kind of triangular setup. If I go to my factory here, you can see that for me this is actually pretty neat. I've kind of got this kind of cake stand setup by creating hexagons. So you can see there I've kind of got a hexagon going, which allows me to create all these branches coming off. So I can get 6 branches coming off, and then I can then expand these as I see fit with each of the different areas. So for me this works really, really well, and I really like it, and it's probably the neatest base I've ever created, and I have the means to expand without it looking like a complete mess. So yeah, I very much like this, very impressed with that. And then finally, if we go over to the logical overview, you need to be aware that their food supplies obviously are different. They have chelt meat and scruffin fruit. So they don't have steaks like the Argon. They don't have the benefits of Argon steak. They have chelt meat, which I imagine is some kind of tinned meat, you know, like spam or something like that. So they don't have the luxuries. And scruffin fruit, well, it's a scruffy muffin, clearly. And that's the only way I can describe the scruffin fruit. I have no idea what it tastes like, but you need to be aware that obviously you've got your own different production facilities for the Split. And that kind of wraps it up for, you know, what's in the Split Vendetta expansion. And really what I want to say is that for me, the thing that I've always loved with X4 is you really get that sense of scale, that you start off in this kind of little fighter, then you get yourself a frigate, then you land a frigate on your base and you look around and you see the size of these structures, and you know, the same with the carrier, which is just epic. And that to me is one of the most enjoyable things about X4 Foundations, is you really do feel like you are in a big, big universe. And that wraps it up for me. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then please give me a like. If you didn't, you can dislike, that's fine. And please subscribe if you want to get more notifications. So hit the bell icon for more notifications. I'm all over the place today. So subscribe, hit the bell icon, produce loads of content, sci-fi gaming. Gonna wrap it up for now before I mess up my words anymore, and see you later. Bye.